Stone and snow covered the path ahead. The wind howled through the mountain cliffs, sharp and cold against every face. Queen Claire walked in front of her people. Her cloak was heavy with frost, but her eyes did not bend. Behind her came Jack, Ethan, Laura, and Kate, along with a small band of men and women who had chosen to follow. They all carried axes, spears, and packs of food that grew lighter each day. The mountains stood like walls of ice. Every step was hard. Snow rose past their knees. Still the queen kept her pace. She had told them that somewhere high in these peaks lay an ancient stone. The stone was not just a relic. It was said to hold the power to guard their kingdom against all who wished them harm. Many had tried to find it before and never returned. Claire would not let that stop her. Jack walked close to her side. He was broad-shouldered and steady, his axe resting across his back. Laura walked near him, quiet but sharp with her eyes, watching for danger. Ethan limped slightly from an old wound, yet carried the heaviest load without a word. Kate followed behind, her gaze often drifting. As if she carried doubts, she dared not speak. The day grew darker, though the sun still hung in the sky. Thick clouds rolled down from the peaks. Snow fell harder, and the wind sharpened. The group found little shelter, only broken rocks that gave a thin shield. They pressed on until Claire raised her hand and stopped. Her eyes scanned the white hills that seemed endless. "We rest here," she said. Her voice was strong even through the storm. They dropped their packs. Laura worked to light a small fire with dry wood she carried close to her chest. Jack and Ethan gathered stones to block the wind. Kate sat apart from the others, rubbing her arms and staring into the dark line of trees below. Night came quickly. The fire gave little warmth, but it was enough to keep their hands alive. The group ate what little food they had left. Dried meat and hard bread passed from hand to hand. Silence sat heavy among them. Then Jack's ears caught a sound beyond the wind. He stood and gripped his axe. "Wolves," he said in a low voice. All eyes turned to the dark around them. The fire threw weak light and long shadows. Growls echoed from the trees. Yellow eyes glimmered in the snow. The first wolf leaped from the dark. Was it and semra fi I sensen with some sen where f sen rents there sen sefis sarf sef ses 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 or sef sella sibes they sigh sus suffer ses sigh suf suf. More shapes came, swift and hungry. Laura pulled her spear and drove it into another that tried to leap at Claire. The queen herself drew a blade and met one head-on, steel flashing in the firelight. The fight was fierce. Snow turned red under their boots. Ethan swung his axe, though pain ran through his leg. Kate screamed as a wolf pulled her down, but Jack reached her in time, driving his blade deep and hauling her back to her feet. The pack did not give up. One broke through and bit into Ethan's arm. He roared in pain but forced it away, blood spilling down his sleeve. Laura stabbed another through the chest and kicked it aside. Finally, the last wolf fled into the dark, limping and bleeding. The snow fell again in silence. The fire crackled weakly. Bodies of wolves lay across the camp. Breath steamed from every mouth. Claire stood among them, her blade red, her eyes hard. "We move at dawn," she said. "This mountain will not break us." They bound Ethan's wound, buried the fallen, and waited for morning. The storm did not ease, but none of them turned back. Ahead lay the stone, and behind them waited death. The journey had only begun. The morning came with bitter cold. Frost clung to their clothes, and their breath rose like smoke in the frozen air. Queen Claire was the first to rise. She moved through the snow, checking the edge of their camp. her eyes searching for any sign of danger. Wolves had left tracks, but the night had carried them far away. Still, she knew they would not be the last threat. Jack was already awake, sharpening his axe against a flat stone. Aurora fed the fire with the last scraps of wood, trying to draw a little more warmth. Ethan lay with his arm bound tight, his face pale but steady. Kate sat close to him, silent and restless. "We move now," Claire said. "The stone waits ahead. We cannot lose time." The group gathered their packs and began to climb higher into the mountains. The path was steep, narrow, and lined with ice. Each step had to be careful, for one wrong move could send them falling into the deep valley below. Hours passed. Storm cleared for a short time, showing peaks that cut the sky like blades. The sight filled some with awe, but for most, it only deepened the weight of the journey. Hunger gnawed at them. Their food was low, and every bite was counted. Jack walked at the front with Claire. He watched the snow for signs of movement. Laura stayed close to Kate, speaking little, but never letting her out of sight. Ethan, though wounded, refused to be left behind. As the sun dipped low, a sound broke the silence of the climb. Voices drifted through the wind, not the howl of wolves, but men. Jack raised his hand, and they stopped. From across the ridge, dark shapes appeared. Warriors stepped out, armed with axes and spears, their leader tall and broad. His name was Grant, known for cruelty and strength. He looked at Claire and smiled with no warmth. "The queen climbs the mountain," he said, "but she is not alone. The stone belongs to those strong enough to claim it." Claire did not move. Her hand rested on the hilt of her sword. "You have no right to the stone," she said. "Turn back, before the mountain takes you." Grant laughed. His men tightened their grip on their weapons. The air grew heavy, every heart beating fast. Snow fell in silence between them. Then the sky opened with a sudden storm. Wind screamed and snow cut their eyes. The storm forced both groups to retreat. Neither side struck first, but the threat hung sharp in the air. Claire pulled her people back into a narrow hollow, sheltered for the night. Inside the hollow, the fire burned weak. The group sat close, listening to the storm rage outside. Ethan winced from his wound but spoke firm. "They will not stop, my queen. Grant will follow us. He will wait for the right time." Claire looked at each of them. "Then we climb faster.
Ow.
The stone must be ours before he reaches it." Jack nodded. Laura said nothing, but her eyes were hard. Kate shifted in her place, her hands trembling slightly. She looked into the fire as if lost in thought. The night was long, filled with the sound of wind and cracking ice. In the distance, the glow of other fires burned against the snow, proof that Grant and his men were close. Claire stood in the hollow, blade at her side, eyes fixed on the dark peaks above. She knew the mountain would test them all, but she would not yield. For her people, for the future of her kingdom, she would claim the stone or fall with her sword in hand. The next morning was heavy with silence. The storm had passed, leaving a white blanket across the ridge. The group moved slow, their bodies stiff from the cold, and their food nearly gone. Queen Claire walked ahead, her steps steady, though her strength was worn thin. She did not speak of her own pain. She carried only the weight of her people and the stone that waited above. Jack marched at her side, his axe ready in his hand. He scanned every shadow, knowing Grant's men were close. Laura followed, her eyes sharp and untrusting. Kate walked behind, her face pale and uneasy. Ethan came last, pushing through his injury with grit, his breath short but firm. The path bent around sharp cliffs, loose ice cracked under their boots. One slip sent rocks tumbling down into the valley, the sound rolling far through the frozen air. Every step felt like a battle with the mountain itself. As they moved higher, Jack spotted footprints in the snow. They were fresh, too large to be from their own group. He crouched and touched the marks with his hand, his jaw tightened. "They are near," he said. Claire looked ahead to the ridge. "Grant will not stop. He'll strike when the mountain hides him best." The group pressed forward. Soon, the wind carried faint sounds of voices. Shadows shifted across the ridge. Grant's warriors appeared again, blocking the narrow path. Their weapons gleamed in the snowlight. Grant himself stepped forward, his breath misting in the cold. "Cannot hold the mountain, Claire," he called. "Your men are weak, your food is gone. Give me the path, and I may let you live." Jack's grip tightened on his axe. Laura lowered her spear into place. Ethan limped into line beside them, ready to fight though pain carved across his face. Claire raised her blade and met Grant's eyes. "We are not weak, and you will not have the stone." The two groups stood ready to strike, but then the mountain itself roared. A sudden rush of snow broke from the cliffs above.
Ah!
The avalanche came fast, tearing down ice and stone.
Ah!
Both sides scattered for cover. Snow swallowed the path, burying men under white weight. When the roar faded, silence returned. Half the ridge was gone, covered in deep drifts. Grant's warriors had been split apart. Some cried out from under the snow. Grant himself stood on the far side, his eyes locked on Claire through the storm's wreckage. Claire pulled her people together. They climbed away from the fallen ridge, moving fast before Grant could gather his men again. That night, they found a broken cave to hide in. The cave walls dripped with cold water. The fire they lit gave little warmth. Laura sat close to Claire and whispered low, "He will not give up. Even the mountain does not scare him." Claire looked at the fire with sharp eyes. "Then we will climb faster. We reach the stone before him, or all of this is for nothing." Jack nodded, his face set. Ethan lay back against the wall, breathing heavy, but refusing to close his eyes. Kate kept to herself, her hands shaking. She turned her face from the others when they looked at her. In the darkness of the cave, snow fell outside in silence. The group did not sleep well. Fear hung heavy, and each of them knew the days ahead would be harder than the days behind. The mountain had spared them once, but Grant's shadow was close, and betrayal was waiting to strike from within. The night in the cave was long and bitter. The wind howled outside, rattling the thin walls. Claire sat by the weak fire, sharpening her sword. Jack leaned against the cold stone, keeping watch. Laura moved quietly, checking supplies and bandages. Ethan breathed shallow but steady, and Kate sat apart, staring at the shadows dancing on the walls. No one spoke much. The air was heavy with fear and tension. Claire could sense it. The mountain tested them in more ways than one. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow felt like a threat. Then, without warning, Kate slipped away. She moved quietly, hugging the darkness, and left the cave. She had no pack, no weapon drawn, only her thoughts of survival. Outside, the snow covered her tracks, hiding them from the group. She headed straight for Grant's camp, the rival who had haunted them across the ridge. Grant smiled when Kate approached. "So you have a choice now," he said. "Help me and live, or stay with her and die in this mountain." Kate nodded, her teeth chattering. She handed him the rough map of Claire's route, the one they had carefully followed. Grant's eyes gleamed. He gathered his men quietly, moving fast to set a deadly trap. Inside the cave, Claire felt unease. She looked at the fire, then at Jack.
Ow.
"Something is wrong," she said. Laura frowned. "Kate." The queen did not answer. Her instincts screamed danger. She pulled her cloak tighter and took her sword. Outside, the snow hid the movement of Grant's men. They struck with precision, attacking before the cave could mount a defense. The battle was sudden. Snow and fire mixed as the group fought to survive. Ethan, though injured, held the line with Jack. Laura stabbed and swung, fighting for every step. Claire moved with deadly speed, cutting through the attackers. The cave echoed with shouts and steel hitting stone. Kate tried to run when she saw the fight, but Jack caught her in the snow. "Why?" he shouted. "Why betray us?" She said nothing. Fear made her silent. The fight around them was brutal. Snow slid under their boots. The walls shook from the weight of rocks loosened by fighting. Ethan took a blow to his side and fell, clutching his wound. Jack threw himself over him, cutting down a man who tried to strike again. Claire faced Grant directly. His sword was strong, but her skill and rage were stronger. Every strike they made sent sparks against the stone walls. Finally, Grant retreated with a snarl, realizing Claire's power and the courage of her group. The remaining attackers fled into the night, slipping through snow and shadows. When the fight ended, silence fell heavy. The snow had quieted. Fire was almost gone. Ethan lay bleeding, but alive. Kate shivered in the snow, trapped by fear and guilt. Laura helped Ethan sit up, pressing bandages tight against his wound. Claire looked at her people, her eyes hard. "We move at first light," she said. This mountain has tested us, and we survived. We will not fail the stone now. No one will stop us, not Grant, not the mountain, and not betrayal. The group gathered close for warmth. Snow fell silently over the cave. The fight had left them scarred, but their resolve was stronger than ever. They knew the journey would only grow more dangerous, but they would face it together, or die trying. The next morning was colder than before. Snow covered every step, and the wind cut across their faces. Queen Claire led her group carefully up the mountain. Jack and Laura followed closely, keeping an eye on the cliffs. Ethan, though weak from his wound, pushed forward, his breath coming in sharp bursts. Kate walked behind, silent and tense, guilt written in every line of her face. After hours of climbing, they found a cave hidden under a frozen overhang. The entrance was small, but inside the walls were smooth and cold. Claire stepped in first, her eyes scanning for danger. Guess cave was said to hide the stone, the ancient relic she had risked so much to reach. The group lit a small fire. The light reflected off the ice and snow outside, making the cave glimmer. Laura checked their supplies, while Jack sharpened his axe. Ethan leaned against the wall, trying to rest. Kate stayed at the back, her face pale and drawn. The cave was quiet at first. Then Claire noticed strange marks on the walls. Ancient carvings showed men and women holding a glowing stone, leading their people to victory in battle.
Ow.
She ran her fingers along the carvings, feeling a connection to the warriors of old. "This is where the stone waits," she said. Her voice was low but firm. "We are close, but we cannot be careless. Traps and enemies will guard it." Jack nodded. "Grant will be here soon. We should prepare." They moved deeper into the cave. The floor was slick with ice. Rocks hung from the ceiling like teeth. Every step was careful. The cave narrowed, forcing them to move in a line. Suddenly, a section of ice collapsed under Jack's boot. He swung his axe to break it before it could hit anyone. Snow and shards fell around them, but no one was hurt. Further inside, they found the stone resting on a pedestal of ice. It glowed faintly, a blue light that filled the cave. Claire approached it slowly, but before she could touch it, voices echoed through the tunnel. Grant and his men had found them. Jack and Laura took positions in front of Claire. Ethan struggled to stand, clutching his wound. Kate froze, unsure where to go. Grant's voice carried through the cave. "The stone belongs to me. Step aside or die." Claire gripped her sword tighter. "You will not have it," she said. "We fight and we will win." The cave became chaos. Grant's men charged, axes swinging. Jack met them head-on, cutting through the first wave. Ethan fought with every bit of strength left, and Claire moved like a storm, her blade cutting fast and precise. The walls echoed with the sounds of steel and shouting. Snow and ice shifted underfoot. Some of Grant's men slipped and fell, leaving them trapped beneath broken rocks. Kate finally found courage and helped push an enemy off Laura. The fight was brutal, but the group stayed close, defending their queen and the stone. Finally, Grant stepped forward alone, furious. Claire met him directly, her eyes blazing. Their swords clashed, sending sparks into the icy walls. Every strike was deadly, every movement precise. Grant swung hard, but Claire blocked and countered, forcing him back. The remaining men of Grant fled, leaving their leader to face Claire. The queen struck once more, and Grant stumbled back, defeated but alive. He glared at her and retreated, disappearing into the cave entrance. Claire breathed heavily. The stone glowed brighter as she approached. She touched it carefully. A warmth spread through her hands and up her arms. She felt power and responsibility at the same time. The journey had been long, but the stone was theirs, and their fight was not yet over. Jack and Laura came close, smiling despite their exhaustion. Ethan sat up, proud and relieved. Kate lowered her head, ashamed but alive. Claire looked at them all. "We take this back home," she said. "Our people will see what courage and loyalty can achieve." The cave was quiet after the battle. The stone glowed faintly, casting blue light across the icy walls. Claire stood before it, her sword still in hand, her breathing heavy. Jack, Laura, and Ethan gathered close, keeping watch. Kate lingered at the back, silent and tense. They knew Grant was not finished. His men had fled, but he would return. Claire turned to her group. "We leave at first light. We carry the stone home." The night was cold. The wind blew against the cave entrance. Snow fell in sheets outside. They huddled together for warmth, but sleep came little. Every shadow felt like an enemy. Every sound made their hearts jump. Before dawn, Claire woke to movement. Shadows slipped along the walls. She raised her sword, signaling Jack. They moved quietly, surrounding the intruder. Grant had returned, alone but dangerous, his eyes filled with fury. "Give me the stone," he said, his voice low and hard, "or you die here." Claire stepped forward, her face set. "The stone will not leave this cave alive," she said. Grant charged, and the fight began. His sword clashed against Claire's, sparks flying. Every strike was hard and fast. Jack and Laura cut down the men who had followed him quietly into the cave. Ethan, though weak, blocked a strike aimed at Claire, throwing the attacker back. Kate froze at first, but finally grabbed a fallen sword and helped push back one of Grant's men. The cave shook as rocks fell from the ceiling. Snow slid across the icy floor, making each movement dangerous. Claire and Grant fought like two storms, neither giving ground. Grant swung hard, but Claire dodged and struck his side, making him stagger. Jack and Laura moved together, covering the queen. Ethan used his strength to hold the enemy back, though blood ran from his arm. Kate finally faced her fear, pushing back a man who tried to strike her. The cave was chaos, but Claire's group stayed together, fighting for survival and for the stone. Finally, Claire saw an opening. Grant's guard faltered, and she struck him down with a hard blow. He fell, gasping, his sword sliding across the ice. He looked at her, eyes full of anger, but he could not move. He was defeated. The remaining men fled into the snow outside. Nick lowered his axe, breathing hard. Laura pressed her hand against her chest, her body shaking. Ethan sat on the ice, exhausted but alive. Kate knelt by the stone, guilt heavy on her shoulders, but thankful to survive. Claire approached the stone and placed her hands on it. A warmth spread through her arms, and she felt strength fill her body. The stone was powerful, but it was more than power. It was a reminder of courage, loyalty, and the price of betrayal. "We carry it home," Claire said, her voice strong. "Our people will see what we have endured. We fight together, we survive together, and we will protect our kingdom." Jack and Laura nodded, their eyes bright with determination. Ethan smiled faintly, proud of their victory. Kate lowered her head, ashamed, but ready to redeem herself. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the snowy peaks. The storm had passed, leaving the mountain cold and quiet. The path back was dangerous, but their spirits were stronger than ever. They had faced death, betrayal, and the mountain itself.
Now with the stone in their hands,
They would return home, ready for the final challenges that lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but Claire knew one truth. They had survived, they had fought, and together, they could overcome anything the world would throw at them. The journey back through the winter mountains was even harder than the climb up. Snow was deep and the wind cut through their clothes. Claire led the group, carrying the stone carefully. Jack walked beside her, his axe ready, watching every ridge. Laura stayed close, scanning for danger. Ethan, though still weak from his wound, pushed forward, determined to survive. Kate walked at the back, silent but alert, her guilt heavy, but her steps steady. The mountains were full of dangers. Rocks fell from cliffs, ice cracked underfoot, and snowdrifts threatened to swallow them whole. Grant's remaining men tried one last attack, hiding in the shadows and striking when they could. But Claire and her warriors were ready. They fought fiercely, cutting down anyone who came near, defending the stone and each other with every ounce of strength. Jack carried Ethan for part of the climb when his legs gave out. Laura and Kate helped push snow aside to keep the path clear. Claire's voice was strong, commanding, and calm even as the storm raged. People followed without question, knowing that she would not fail them. One evening, after a long day of climbing, they found a narrow pass that led to a lower ridge. The sun touched the mountains with faint light, and the snow sparkled under it. Claire paused to look at the path ahead. It was dangerous, but it would bring them closer to home. She nodded to her group, and they pressed on. Grant's men tried another ambush, but the Queen had learned from every attack. Jack cut down two men who tried to trap them in a narrow gorge. Laura threw her spear and blocked another attack. Ethan used his last strength to push one enemy off the edge. Kate, finally facing her fear, helped pull Claire's blade free when it got stuck in ice. After the fight, the group pressed on without rest. Their bodies were tired, but their spirits were stronger than ever. The stone glowed softly in Claire's hands, a symbol of what they had survived. She looked at her people and felt pride. Each one had faced death and betrayal, and none had turned away. Finally, the mountains gave way to lower hills. The snow thinned, and the sky opened to show the valley below. Their home was visible in the distance, small and warm against the cold. Claire smiled despite her exhaustion. The hardest part of the journey was behind them. Now they had to reach the village safely. Jack carried Ethan again for the last stretch. Laura and Kate guided them through the safer paths. The stone was heavy, but Claire held it steady. Thinking of her people and the kingdom that depended on them, they reached the village. The people ran to meet them. Cheers and shouts filled the air. The queen lifted the stone high, and the villagers saw its glow. It was a symbol of strength, courage, and survival. Jack, Laura, Ethan, and even Kate stood by her side, their faces tired but proud. Claire addressed her people, her voice strong. "We have survived the mountain. We have faced betrayal, danger, and death itself. This stone is ours, and it will protect our home. Together we fight, together we live, and no force can ever break us." The villagers celebrated, but Claire knew the true lesson. It was not just the stone that gave power. It was courage, loyalty, and the willingness to stand together that made them strong. The queen looked at her warriors and felt hope. They had faced the worst the mountains could give, and they had survived. Snow fell lightly on the village that night. The stone's glow lit the faces of the people, and Claire stood tall among them. The journey was over, but the story of courage and survival would live forever in their hearts. The queen had led her people through stone and snow, and they had returned stronger, braver, and united.